Ready. Okay, good morning again, everybody. Um, and this is our last session on working through the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius, and we're going to um, deal with the last of the spiritual exercises before all the supplementary material. You may remember there are 370 what they call annotations, which are essentially paragraphs to the spiritual exercises, and they end at this annotation, which is 230 to 235, I think, or something like that, and then everything beyond. So really, a third of it is supplementary material, um, and this he calls the contemplation to attain divine love. That's the translation. I'll remind you there are some 5,000 different translations of this piece of work, and the translations all have a different feeling. One of the books that I've done some work out of, it's not right here, but it's called "Draw Me Into Your Friendship." It doesn't even say spiritual exercises, and the left hand page is a traditional translation, and the right hand page is this guy doing his own more contemporary translation. But even then, you'll find lots of disagreements over what a word means. And just jumping ahead in this instance, there are translations different. When we get to the end of what they call the take and receive prayer, um, many of the translations say, "Give me only your love and your grace. That is enough for me." But the one that I like the best says, "Give me only my love for you, um, as opposed to your love for me. That is enough for me." So we'll get to that. But I'm just trying to point out, I'm so glad that right after the third step prayer in the big book, it says, and the third step prayer is probably one of the most important things it really marks the turning point when we're trying to go from a self-centered, self-involved life into forming this relationship with God. And so it's as important as they come. And I believe personally that the whole deal um, is relieve me of the bondage of self, that I can better do what you want me to do with my life. This is a theme you're going to hear this morning, I hope a lot, that I think my life is about me, of course, and I'm dealing with me and my reactions to what I call my life. But there's all this spiritual literature coming at us and challenging us. And I'm going to read one of them this morning. It's the Rick Warren thing you've heard before. It's not about you. It's not about what you call your life. It's about whether or not you are able to live to God's purpose for your life, which is part of one of those readings was about desolation and consolation. And when I'm living to my purpose for my life, I wind up inevitably being deeply disappointed. I want my life to be different than it is, and I wind up in desolation, a lack of faith and hope and love, or the reverse, doubt and fear and despair. Where consolation is defined, and part of the definition is I am in sync with God's purpose for my life. And make no mistake, if you pay attention to the words of step 11, it is saying the only thing I am supposed to be praying for is knowledge of God's will for me. Now, knowledge of God's will for me means what, my Creator, is your purpose for my life. And we're all going to come up with different answers to that. One of the things I love about A Course in Miracles, it kind of uses this word special. And special is not a good word in A Course in Miracles. It means the self-centered point of view, and now I just lost my train of thought on it. Oh yeah. So at one point it's saying, you've seen it written, many are called, but few are chosen. Um, that's not that's not the truth. Everybody's called, and few choose to respond to the call. So, and part of the whole Jesuit thing is that this is about responding to God's call for my service, that I play a role in whatever the purpose for my life is. And pretty quickly here, I'm going to read some parts from uh, from Bill's story, because I think he does a wonderful job talking about agnosticism. Um, this is page 10 of the big book. I'd always believed in a power greater than myself. I'd often pondered these things. I was not an atheist. Few people really are. For that means blind faith in the strange proposition that this universe originated in a cipher and aimlessly rushes nowhere. He's asking the question, which Einstein himself said was the most important question you could ask yourself. Is this all here with a good purpose? Does my life have a positive purpose? Or is it just meaningless, random coincidence? And I'm just hoping I wind up being lucky as opposed to people I see that are unlucky. So one of the things that I sent out to you, and I don't know which of you have it in front of you, but I'm working off of this. It's a little 4-page thing, and the first part of it was a reminder of what Ignatius says is the primary purpose of your life, and we've adapted this one of our readings. That's number 2, the primary purpose of your life. So this is a more traditional rendering of this thing. And this comes from annotation number 23. So it's really early in the 370 annotations. 23, the principle and foundation. The primary purpose of our lives is to trust, love, and serve God, our Lord and Creator. This immediately brings up the big thing. Do I think I created myself? Because at least depending on how you answer that, if I think I created myself, then what the frig do I want to get involved with God? We talk often about the 3 phrases. One is pause, ask and listen, and then do in accordance with what you hear when you ask and listen. And that's step 10 is the pause, step 11 is the asking and listening, and step 12 is the doing in accordance with what you hear when you ask and listen. Well, before the 3rd step prayer, it says, first of all, we got to quit playing God. That's the pause. Next, we got to invite God in. We have to invite God in and it gives us ideas as to how to do that. Oh, I didn't say something I wanted to say. Um, we invite God in as our director and we're the actor, if we're into the drama of life, as our principal and we're the agent, if we're into the business aspect of our lives, as our parent and we're the child, if we're into the emotional part of our lives, or as our friend, our mentor, our best friend, our guide, whatever you want. But the key part is that we are inviting God in. What I failed to say earlier was that right after the 3rd step prayer, one of the most important things, it says the words, of course, are quite optional as long as you capture the spirit of it, which is something that Jesus said. This is not about the letter of the law, this is about the spirit. So that I think that gives us permission to change anything we want, in the words of the big book or anything else. And I have found personally it's really important. I'm a nitpicker and I don't know, a detail, and I like changing words of things so that I can own them, or I'm more comfortable with them. So anyway, So this is I'm back on 23, principle and foundation. Primary purpose of my life is to trust, love, and serve my Creator. Period. Um, and I've added this: do the work our souls came here to do. So this comes from Journey of Souls. It comes from a whole number of literature that's out there that says the soul has lived hundreds of human lives, and this is just one of them. Emmett Fox says your entire life is one day in the life of your soul. One day. That at a minute, 365 days times 70 years, that's 21,000 lives that my soul has been through. And my soul is here for some reason. My soul is here to learn something that I haven't been able to learn before. And I don't know what that is. Um, I don't know what that. I feel I'm moving closer to it than further away from it. Um, and I think that's another way you could say step 11. Why is my soul here? What am I supposed to learn? What is the exact nature of my wrongs? What have I failed to learn so far? You know, for me, the essential lesson of this thing is I am powerless over my bondage of self, however that's showing up. And I believe that my powerlessness shows up as desolation. I feel doubt and I feel fear and I feel despair. I'm not feeling faith and hope and love. Um, and for me, enthusiasm is faith and hope and love. I'm enthusiastic, and that's all I've ever wanted in this lifetime was to be glad to wake up in the morning and glad to go through my day. And I feel that today. Boating season's coming up, and I can't wait. You know, I think about what it doesn't matter, but because I always woke up with a sense of dread, and the sooner I could get some alcohol in me, the sooner that sense of dread would diminish. And it was like, my mind was, what's going to go wrong today? Who's going to disappoint me today? Who's going to light me up today? Because I'm powerless over my reactions to the people in my life. So then I'm back on this principle and foundation. All the things of this earth are created to help us pursue this end, which is to trust, love, and serve our Creator. Therefore, this is straight Al Anon. This is take what you want and take what works for you and leave the rest. Therefore, use the things of creation, including objects, relationships, situations, as long as they're helpful. Um, but we should free ourselves from the things that obstruct our progress toward this end. And in order to do this, we must make ourselves impartial toward all created things. So sometimes they use the word indifferent, which I don't like because indifferent to me means callous, uncaring. Um, some Buddhists use the word detachment as a way to say the same thing. I like impartial because it's just meaning I don't have to care what happens. No matter what happens, I feel I'm gonna be okay. Um, and then a complicated Ignatius, he just talked in such complicated to the degree that we are not under any prohibition to the contrary. What he's saying is if you have made a vow or you're part of a religious order or you're part of a whatever where you are told don't do this, so he's just saying as long as you're not going contrary to something that you are not supposed to do, we should not desire and seek health more than sickness, wealth more than poverty, a long life more than a short life, an honored life more than a dishonored life. Does that fly in the face of the human ego or what? You say that to a human ego and they're going to know, no. I want a long life. I want a healthy life. I want a rich life. I want an honored life. No. That doesn't work for me. Um, And then he concludes this with we should desire and seek only what is good for our souls. So what I want to do is run through this the actual contemplation, and then go to it's 2 pages, I think. And then the last page, page 4, is a prayer that's trying to incorporate these ideas that are in the contemplation. So what we're coming to the end of all this Ignatian stuff, and starting next week, where I hope to have meetings the next 2 or 3 weeks anyway. And we're going to shift where I'm not going to go on so long, and we're going to have roundtable sharing. Going to try to give everybody a chance to share, and we're going to be focused on a topic, and I will send you a notice saying the topic. And the first thing we're going to talk about is prayer. First thing we're going to talk about is step 11, techniques that come from different situations, but I can say the circle and the triangle means a great deal to me. And I would hear people talk about a 3 legacy program. And when they say that, they're talking about unity, recovery, and service. Unity means meetings of the fellowship. Recovery means our one-on-one work together, trying to go through these steps. And service means service, where we are trying to be of service to whatever situation that we're in. And make no mistake, the 10th step for me, and this question, God, how can I best serve you, it is applicable to every moment of my life. Every moment when I'm able to, which I'm not, by the way. I've always been able to talk better than I can do. But no matter what the situation, if I am able to pause and ask, what do you want me to do? How can I best serve you in this calamitous situation, which I might be in, with somebody sick or hurt, or somebody being angry with me, or whatever? If I could get to that question, God, how can I best serve you? I get much closer to faith and hope and love than when I experience my powerlessness over me, my powerlessness over my reaction to whatever's going on. Never forget, this is something I think we have in AA that I have not seen in other traditions. Lack of power is always our dilemma. And what we lack power over is us. That I lack power over the sun and the moon and the tide, that's easy. That I lack power over me, that's a lot harder to see and to work with for most of us, because we're so busy in self-justification. I don't want you telling me I shouldn't be reacting the way I'm reacting. You know, I don't want you telling me resentment is like me drinking poison hoping you're going to die. I don't want to hear that. I have this ongoing argument with this friend about which comes first, anger or fear. He's convinced that anger comes first, and I'm convinced that fear comes first. I'm convinced that my anger is my first responder to my fear. I don't even feel the fear. I feel the anger, the resentment, whatever it is. And then I've learned through our 4-column inventory to go through my sense of irritation with whatever and looking for, where am I in the 4th column? Where am I being dishonest, selfish, or frightened? And dishonest often means I'm believing my own thinking, and I'm kidding myself. And I don't even see that happening. Whew, geez, my oh my. Let's see. So I want to read you, just before we get into the actual contemplation, um, Rick Warren on "It's Not About You." It isn't very long. This is in the study guide. If you're interested, it's study guide, step 10, page 7. It's not about you. you know, if If Ignatius is going to say, it doesn't matter if you have a long life, a short life, a rich life, a poor life, a healthy life, a sick life, an honored life, a dishonored life, and the human ego is gonna go, no, 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 that's not it. It is about, well, all those things. We talked about that earlier. Um, to hear somebody say it's not about you. Are you freaking kidding me? Of course it's about me. What else is it going to be about? That's what the self-centered human brain does. You know, um, we often try to address the question, where is God in this picture? Somebody's spewing their guts about whatever, and somebody goes, where's God in that picture? And the person will turn kind of and blush a little bit and go, God's not in that picture. you know um, it's not about you. What do you mean it's not about me? That's where the self-centered mind goes, and we're powerless over it. And we're powerless over it because I believe it's fear generated. It all comes down to fear. And I also believe my soul does not live in fear the way my ego does. My ego's worried about everything, and my soul's worried about nothing. Emmett Fox says, the natural state of the soul is serenity, deep peace of the soul. That's what serenity, the word serenity meant, the deep peace of the soul. Of course, we think of it, well, doesn't matter. Okay, it's not about you. The purpose of your life is far greater than your own personal fulfillment. Wait, stop right there. Your own personal fulfillment, your peace of mind, or even your happiness. What? Um, it's far greater than your family, your career, or even your wildest dreams and ambitions. If you want to know why you were placed on this planet, you must begin with God, your creator. You were born by God's purpose for God's purpose. What is that purpose? What is God's purpose for my life? And I'm trying to say I have to be relieved of the bondage of self before I can honestly ask that question. And that's why I believe our 12 steps of recovery are such an amazing process. By way in steps 4 and 5, we detail our bondage of self, whether that bondage shows up as resentment, fear, or remorse around our self-centered and selfish conduct. That's what usually, we're all different mixes of those three things. And I believe they're all based on fear. They're all fear-based. Um, and then we disclose our bondage of self to the person that we're working with, and to God, admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. I may one day declare to you that I know what the exact nature of my wrongs is, but I don't. Other than I believe my own thinking, which has misled me all my life for the most part. And I act on it, even worse, and then I become powerless over it. I become powerless over my own thinking, my own reactions to whatever's going on. And one of the ways to counteract that is to try to attend to the question, God, how can I best serve you? All right, so now we're going to the contemplation, the traditional rendering, and this is not in the form of a prayer, but as I say, that's what I want, because the prayer is that we go back to the circle and the triangle. The prayer is the circle part. Prayer and meditation is the serenity circle. We're a 4 legacy program: unity, recovery, service, and prayer and meditation. And every time I do these big book workshops, at the end of a big book workshop, we go around the room and everybody talks about a takeaway from the workshop. And every time, every workshop I've done, somebody says, I I heard this recent. I know what's been missing from my program. A 30-year person said this. I know what's missing from my program. I got to get back to prayer and meditation. Another time I heard a person say, for the first time in a number of years, um, last night I kneeled down and I took 12 deep breaths. No prayer, no particular rote prayer, but I took 12 deep breaths and it felt good. Um, okay, contemplation to attain divine love. Consideration number one. Love ought to show itself in deeds over and above words. This got to be classic AA. That's what we say. Love is an action word. It's not a theoretical passive thing. Um, Consideration two, love consists in a mutual sharing of everything between lovers. Now, in this case, it's between God and ourselves as human beings. Then he slips in this preparation in the usual way back in section 46. They state this usual preparatory prayer. So you're doing this at the beginning of your prayer process. God, I beg that everything in my day, all my thoughts and words and actions, be directed more and more purely toward your service and praise. That's a translation, and you'll find lots of different translations, but it's their way of saying, God, how can I best serve you? Which is what our step 10 says. Then he calls these things preludes. It just means things to imagine before you are entering into whatever the contemplation is going to be. I imagine myself standing before God and all of God's saints and angels who are praying for me. Wow, really? Um, I love this. So you may remember there was a time when we were talking about 12 points of a Jesuit prayer, and I manipulated it a little bit so there could be 12. Um, and it started with beginning your usual way. You're developing a habit of your prayer period. Two, quiet down before the Lord. Three, behold the Lord beholding you with much love. And then four, thank the Lord for a few blessings, large and small, which you are feeling right now. So this number three, behold the Lord, this is behold God, beholding you with much love. That's the same as this. Behold all of God's saints and angels up there in wherever it is that they are, and they're watching me kneel down and they're praying for me. They're praying that I can feel God's love for me and act on the guidance that I get. We use the word grace, the grace of God, and you get whatever definition of grace that you want. Mine is a combination of guidance and power. If lack of power is my dilemma, what I want to invite into my life is the grace of God. And that means I want to invite in information as to how I can best serve God or what God wants me to do in a particular situation, and then the power to actually do it. If I get a green light on something that I'm thinking about, then Emmett Fox says, okay, then you stake your claim. You claim the power to actually do that. So, okay, second prelude, I beg God for the grace to be fully aware of all the blessings God lovingly shares with me so that I can know God better, so I can love God more deeply, so that I can serve God more fully. This is a Jesuit thing where it's given as a reason why we're studying these Bible um, chapters on about Jesus's life. We're studying his life in the Bible as it's portrayed in the Bible, so that we can know Jesus better, so that we can love Jesus more deeply, so that we can serve Jesus more fully. In AA, Jesus is not a thing. Higher power, yes. If Jesus works for you, that's wonderful. But we're talking about higher power. We're not placing an intermediary between us and God. Okay, first prelude, imagining God, saints, and angels. Second prelude, I'm trying to be aware of all God's blessings in my life, which he's actually going to repeat. It's the first point. 234, first point. Bring to memory all the blessings I've received from God. My creation. Now, you may differ. You may think you created yourself, or you may think your parents created you. What's God got to do with it? God doesn't have anything to do with my life here. Um, but my creation and my redemption. I love this. I feel today I am redeemed from the clutches of addiction. My life has been redeemed from the clutches of my addiction to alcohol. Um, my creation, my redemption, and my particular gifts is just saying we're all different. We all have different assets and liabilities. We go through that with character defects. And I'll remind you the beauty of that 7-step prayer. I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I'm not going to judge my own character defects. I'm not going to say this is good, this is bad. I'm saying you get all of it. I pray that you now restore me to sanity in whatever way makes me more useful to you and to my fellows. It's third step prayer and the 7-step prayer are just freaking awesome in terms of turning our minds from our selfish, self-centered little lives. I love that. My little plans and designs, I think, is before the third step prayer, where it talks about I'm getting relieved of that stuff. I'm no longer so self-concerned about. So first point is to bring to memory all the blessings I've received from God, my creation, my redemption, my particular gifts. Pondering with deep affection. this is Ignatius for you. How much God has done for me. How much God has given me and wants to give me of what God is. And I'm saying for me, that's guidance and power. That's grace. And to reflect upon this and consider, and I love this, consider what in all reason and justice, he says, in all reason and justice, what I ought to offer God in return. And then this take and receive prayer, this is as close to the third step prayer as anything I found in all the spiritual literature that I've written. Oh, gracious Lord, please take and receive all my liberty, my memory, my intellect, my will, all that I have and possess and call my own. Take and receive all that I am. You gave it all to me. To you I return it. All is thine, to do with what you will. Give me only my love for you as well as your grace. That is enough for me. Pretty cool. Okay. Second point is to see how God dwells in all of creation, giving the elements their being, the plants their growth, the animals their feeling, and giving us, humankind, our understanding. I am created in your image and likeness, and you have made me you have made me your temple. May I trust, love, and serve you in return. Third point, for me to consider how God works and labors for me through all created things on the face of this earth. God does this out of God's love for me, and I should reflect upon myself what I ought to give God in return. So these are big Jesuit themes. Seeing God in all things is the way it is usually articulated. I am looking for the presence of God in everything. A Course in Miracles has this thing, you're looking at a table. and they're trying to get you to see God in this table, an inanimate created thing, to see the presence of God in this table. It's something I never understood until working with this kind of stuff. So God not only dwells in all things, God is working through all things. And then the fourth point, for me to be aware of God's unceasing gifts to all of creation, descending upon us like the rays from the sun, coming to us as the endless waters from a spring. I reflect on my life and as has been said, and end with a colloquy, informal but serious conversation with God, and pray in our Father. So that's the spiritual exercise. And if you turn to the next page, this is a prayer where I'm trying to incorporate the ideas that are in that contemplation. And for starters, instead of contemplation to attain divine love, I'm calling it prayer to feel God's love, because that's what I want. I want to pray and I want to feel God's love for this universe, in spite of the insanity that we see all around us. O loving and most gracious God, may I trust, love, and serve you in all that I think, say, and do. Please help me be aware of all of your many blessings in my life, my creation, my redemption, my particular gifts. May I ponder with deep affection all that you have done for me, how much you have given me, how all your saints and angels are praying for me, and how much you want to give me of yourself. May I reflect upon this and consider what, in all reason and justice, I ought to offer you in return. Here is my prayer. O gracious Lord, please take and receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, my entire will, all that I have and call my own. You gave it all to me. To you I return it. All is thine to do with what you will. Give me only my love for you as well as your grace. That is enough for me. May I see how you dwell in all of creation, giving elements their being, plants their growth, animals their sensation, and humankind our understanding. I am your temple. You dwell in me and work through me for the benefit of all created things on the face of this earth. And you do this out of your eternal and infinite divine love. May I be aware of your unceasing blessings coming to us all, as rays descending from the sun, as waters flowing from a spring. I pray only for knowledge of your will for me, your purpose for my life, and the power to carry that out. Please show me your ways of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. May I trust, love, and serve you in all ways for always. Thank you. I love you. Blessed be. Okay, kids, that's enough. I'm going to gong this gong. Mark's going to stop the recording and we'll have some open discussion. Thank you for being here.